Welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We're here to raise your confidence and inspire your creativity. Each episode, we will have a different guest who will be discussing our Raise word. The Raise word is a word that will encourage you or empower you and at times inspire you to explore the word a little more for yourself. Oh, hello everybody and welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We've looked at some really interesting words over this last series, but the word that we're looking at today is fundamental, and that seems to underpin everything. We're going to be talking to the brilliant Dani Louise Smith, the business queen. Some of you might have heard her jingles. Hi, Dani, how are you doing?
Hi, Carol. Thank you. I'm doing good.
Thank you so much for doing this today. We'll find out all about you as we chat. But before we say anything else, what does the word fundamental mean to you?
For me, it's about the essentials, and this is with anything. They're essential for whatever it is you're working on in your life. So it used to be about business for me, but now it's both. It's life and business because one doesn't go without the other, and it's just the underlying things that need to happen, that must happen, and I guess the basic needs of life, really.
Yeah. How good are you then, Dani, at the fundamentals? How good are you at putting those in place first? Or are you someone that likes to do all the shiny bits first and then goes, oh, whoops, I haven't put the fundamentals in yet. That's me, by the way.
I'm gonna be really honest in that I'm really good now, but I'm still working on it in some areas of my life because there is absolutely fundamental things that are part of different things, whether it's like my family, like to make things run smooth, or my health, or my business, or things that I just love doing, like me as a person and being creative. But a lot of the stuff is in place because I've always worked on it, but recently I'm not as good at the health stuff and like the fundamentals of that, of being healthy and committing to that. But that's something I'm really big on at the minute and I'm working on. But I think it's something that I've come to realize as I've got older, as I've learnt more in life, as I throw anything and test out anything. And as I've done that, I've realized like what is fundamental in each area and how we need to look at things, because actually underlying with anything is kind of the same blocks that hold people back, or the same questions that we need to ask that can help just move us forward. So yeah, I'm getting there now, but I think there's a lot more work to do, and I want more people to do that work for themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I said it kind of with a twinkle in my eye because you and I are both creatives, and we know that creatives are shocking at laying down fundamentals because all we want to do is the fun stuff. But as you said, the fundamentals are so important, aren't they, in anything, whether it's your health or the business side of things. Those building blocks are really interesting. And I'm interested in what you said, because you said about blocks, and I thought you were going to talk about building blocks, but actually you were talking about blocks that limit us. And
Yeah.
I wonder how easily and quickly we lay down those blocks before we lay down the actual blocks that are going to enable us to build.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like I've seen it in business first. Like people jump straight in. Like the easiest scenario I can give is they jump straight in, they'll start selling something, but actually they've not laid what I call foundations. So fundamentals and foundations are a similar thing. Foundations can be different for everyone, but I say your fundamentals are your essentials, the
Yeah.
stuff that every business owner must do. The same as with anything, like if you want to be healthy, then it's, I guess the fundamentals are like drink water, exercise, get sleep, all of this stuff that we actually know. We know what we need to be doing, but we've not all got that fundamentally in place, so to speak. And so, like business owners do it, they just start, they put something out there and it doesn't go quite as well as they expected. And the reason behind that is because we've gone to the shiny things, like you said, and we've not actually looked at what is fundamental, what those basic needs are for the business, or even for ourselves as well. Because one thing I've come to learn especially recently, is that I am a business and my business is part of my life. It's all part of one thing, it's all part of me. And so I need to act accordingly with that. And so if I've not got the fundamentals in place, which was why I'm working on my health, then that will impact my business at some point. I mean, it has in the past. Like I've got allergies. If I eat the food that affects me, then I react, then I can't work because it literally puts me in bed. So that's just one example. But there is many, many examples that people have. And there's often similar blocks that I find are a correlation between business and other areas of life around time, around money, around not being able to know how to do things. But I think a lot of the time we do sort of know how. Like, for example, we know how to be healthy, like I said, going back to like the drinking water and exercise. We know those basic stuff. It's just how to apply it for ourselves, I guess. Like, how do we set those fundamental things in place for ourselves in a way that works for ourselves?
Yeah, and I wonder if the difference between, blocks that are going to limit us and building blocks, I guess part of that is putting them in the right place. So
Mm.
if you set about building a house, but you put brick on brick on brick and you don't put any horizontal at all, they're all vertical, then all you do is build a
Yeah.
massive barrier, don't you? Whereas if
Yeah.
we teach people to, lay them down slowly, bit by bit, and build a firm foundation, then that's going to be a much better kind of starting off point. I think it's important to say that as a businesswoman, you're self-employed, which is important because business women who are also mums have quite a massive disadvantage and challenge, don't they? Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about how it is living life as a business mum.
Oh, I'm so glad you've asked this question because I love sharing it, not because I want to talk about myself, but because I want to help other people through my story.
Mm,
Because you've got typical mums, and then you've got me as a mum who also has children that are, so I've got three children, and we've actually got two of them now that are going through assessments for neurodiversity, as well as
mm,
me, as well as my husband. So there's a lot of that going on. But as a mum, it does present its challenges because and this links to the fundamentals as well. Like things have got to be in place to make it work as
yeah.
a mum, as a business owner, and be who I want to be, I guess, because I can just focus in one area or I can choose to actually give part of me to all of them, but prioritize when I need it. Like sometimes I feel awful saying it, but if I need to give my business the focus, I'll give my business the focus. But
Mm,
I explain to my children why that needs to happen. But
yeah.
then I know that like when to prioritize them. So for example, um Christmas, Halloween, all these special occasions where they have time off school, they'll become more of my priority because they've got that time, so I want to give it to them. So I look at it that way, but yeah, it is massively challenging because I think as a parent, you've got distractions, you've got things that happen that you're not always in control with to a
Mm,
point.
yeah.
Like, for example, children getting poorly. I've literally experienced that this week.
Yeah.
And over the last few weeks between myself and my kids getting poorly, and you just can't really, other than keeping up hygiene, of course, but when they're going to school, when you go into, we go to soft play a lot, they're gonna pick up germs, they're going to catch bugs, and like that's a curveball. And there's many, many examples. My kids get sent home a lot from school because of the challenges with the neurodiversity and things happening. There's always incidents, and so I can never predict when that's going to happen. So I've had to work on my own mindset around that and my own the way I run my business, my energy around that because at the end of the day, I've got to treat every day like this is what I've got planned, but then this is also a possibility of what could happen and being okay with it if it does and something does interrupt or there is a distraction or my energy needs to be elsewhere and just, I guess, adjusting to that. And that has been something that's been really, really hard. As someone who I do believe I'm undiagnosed ADHD, and it's been really hard to kind of work on that. But it's so important to because it can't just be black and white every day. This is what's going to happen because even if it's not to do with the kids, it could be my health, my husband's health, other people in my family. There could be things going on that then cause a distraction. So, and I'm not saying like every distraction let it distract you. I think there's definitely got to be some kind of thought process to each one as it comes and how you navigate and how you deal with it. And I've got really good with that now. And I think everybody should work on, not I think, I know everybody should work on it, because I see it a lot where people make decisions or choices that don't necessarily serve them, and then they find, I hate saying it because I feel like people don't like to hear it, but it does need to be said, is like they make excuses, and it's noticing whether it's a reason or it's an excuse, or whether it's choosing for it to be okay to make that excuse if it feels right for you right now. For example, um like I'm trying to think, like if my kids get sent home because there's been an incident, like I will still work. I might go pick them up, but I'll still work because they can. I'm quite fortunate, but unfortunate that my husband's got disability, so he is at home. It's not great, but it also helps in those times. So I can then continue working. But I know that some parents wouldn't find a way. It'd just be kids got sent home, and that's an excuse not to work. Even if it was just me, I truly believe that I would find a way to make it happen, whether it's adjusting my schedule a bit and wait until they're in bed, or doing the things. I always say there's like tasks we can do while the children are around. And this is with anything, again, back to the fundamentals in life. It's not just business, it's working on your health when the children are alive, around, can absolutely happen. And all sorts of things like that. So yeah, well, my kids are always alive like crazy and wild in our house. But yeah, it's those fundamentals that we can still do it with kids around. They don't have to be an excuse not to. Neither does time, and neither does those beliefs that might hold you back. Neither does someone else's thoughts, someone else's opinions. Like we can still get those fundamentals in place to be able to do what we need to do. It's just not necessarily always in the way that you expect it.
Mm. What I'm hearing is they're non-negotiables, aren't they, Dani? They're deal
Yeah,
breakers. No, you're absolutely not touching X, Y, and Z because this is what I need. You know, I said to you at the top of the podcast, I need to do this interview today. There's lots of things going on, and I need this for my own mental health to be able to do the things that I love doing, speak to somebody that I care about, and I know is going to inspire the people that listen. I need that. That's one of my
yeah,
fundamentals, is I need to be able to either be creative or do something that makes me feel productive. And it is a non-negotiable because I know that it, you know, supports my mental health. And as you were saying, talking earlier on about things like water, I mean, that is a non-negotiable. I mean, it's kind of like a, you know, everybody needs to drink water, but not everybody does, do they? And it seems like a
no,
really kind of obvious thing to say. And I was going to say, which is a massive mistake, everybody in the world drinks water, and of course they don't. So
no, they
our
don't.
fundamentals and our non-negotiables are completely different to so many other people's in other places. Um, um, you know, if you think about some people whose fundamentals will be, how am I going to get to the well to get some
Yeah.
water in the first place? And I think we forget about that. I think that's probably for another episode. But yeah, those deal breakers, those things that we say, no, that's got to happen today.
Mm.
And but it can still be a real challenge, can't it? Even when you know
Yeah.
that, I mean, people know that water's, you
It's
know,
literally so simple. We know how to get it because we
yeah,
have it. We're really fortunate. We have it accessible.
yeah,
We know how to pour it in a cup. We know how to
yeah.
pour it in our mouth. But yet we still resist, and and I'm no exclusion to this. Like I'm no exception. It's only recent. It's about 3 weeks now. I've reduced caffeine. Fizzy drinks were really bad for me, but I've massively reduced caffeine. And I literally only drink water, and then there is a couple of occasions like I went for a meal with my sisters yesterday, so I did have a couple of like Diet Cokes because it's less calories and
Mm.
it's better for you. So there is those occasions because we don't have to be perfect, but I still made sure that I consumed the water that I know my body needed. And it's the same. I act the same with my business because there's parts of it that are essential, like steps that get missed by so many. I've literally just seen it before we started this podcast. I've got a client who a multi-level marketing company. And I teach people that are in those areas all the time about branding. But then I go onto social media and I see a post of hers, and it's not branded to her, it's branded to them and their products. And I'm like, oh, this is a fundamental like you need in place to brand you, because you never know what's going to happen, like with the products, with the company. And at least if it's her, then whatever happens, like having these fundamentals in place, they kind of make you bulletproof. They make you um less susceptible to changes or unexpected instances that could impact your business. So, for example, if products went away, company went away, there's still her left, there's still this brand left that everybody's connected with. So, whatever she decided next could happen, which is, to be fair, that's exactly what's happened with me and my businesses, because I've changed over the last 11 years a few times. But people have always understood clearly who I am, what I'm about, because I've had that in place as a fundamental, like people getting to know me behind what I do, and they follow you, they relate, resonate with you, they feel inspired, and they go with that. So it does have a massive impact, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you teach these fundamentals, and because you talked a lot about your clients and things like that, and I know that
Yeah.
you've got a book coming out, which is very exciting. So tell us about how you go about teaching some of those fundamentals without giving too much away, because of course we want people to go and read your book.
Yeah. So I call myself a business coach and mentor, now an author because the book's coming. I've been an author before, but this is my first solo book.
Mm.
And my approach is a lot different to the typical business coach and mentor, because yes, I do both. Yes, I cover most areas of business that they would, but a big focus for me is organization, because I truly believe that being organized, planning, productivity, time management, all of that things that again are fundamental to your business, I do believe they are. And so I look at how you can streamline and organize the way your business actually operates. And people get scared with that word. Oh no, that's too advanced for me. The way your business operates, it's just a fancy word for management. And it's not about you have to be at a certain level. Like if you do this from the beginning, talk from experience here as well. If you do this from the beginning, your business will soar. So that's kind of what I teach. And again, teach from experience. I've had multiple businesses. Took a while for my first one to be successful, and then when it was, I started teaching from that, which I love. But I do it in like different ways, and the newest way will be through the book, because I wanted an accessible way to teach people these fundamentals of the business. And the book is actually called Business Fundamentals, and because of this, because it is fundamental. So like people could start reading it that are already established, but there's still going to be something in there that will just make them think about what they're already doing and how they can adjust it, so that they recognize like where they need to be more organized or where they need to work on this. There's a lot in there about time and money, because these have been massive blocks for me, and I share honestly how I overcame them, and I ask questions that get people thinking as well. So that's a little spoiler, but there's so much more my story than I've ever shared before. There's so much insight. So it's like a course in a book, and I have this as a course as well, but I put this in the book so it's accessible so people can learn it, and it's step by step, and it's I love things to be simple. So that's kind of what I teach through there, and how I'm doing it at the moment, and I love it, and I can't wait to get it into people's hands.
I mean, can I say that I've kind of, I've watched your journey probably over the maybe 6, 7 years, something like that. And it's been so exciting to see those fundamentals really working for you,
Yeah.
going from your creative business and all that you were doing there, and then suddenly this newfound confidence in what you were doing and how much you believed in what you were doing and knew what you were doing, and then wanting to share that with other people and the different roads that you've gone down in order to share that with other people. And it's been wonderful to see you just kind of growing and blossoming and becoming kind of larger than life in front of our eyes, with a crown atop your head, as the Queen of Business Organization. I will always thank you for giving me one of the most difficult words, apart from tranquility and tranquility, in a jingle.
I know who did that one.
Shout out Emily Kirk. But it's because you had those fundamentals in place, and you started somewhere, I would think small, and then
Yeah.
kind of grew and grew and grew. And that's what you want, Dani. If you're going to buy a book, if you're going to buy a course or work with someone, you want to know that that person's done the journey. People aren't really flocking to the kind of, 6-figure people just for fear of, well, I've no idea who you are or what you're doing. I think people want to know the person behind it and see that they've really gone through it and started small and worked their way up. I think that can be a fundamental in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is really exciting. And we'll talk a little bit more about the book in a minute. Tell me a little bit about how fundamentals started for you. At what point in life did you think something kind of needs to shift?
Oh, there's been loads of different points in different areas. So
Yeah.
the first pivotal moment will be when, so I tried to leave employment years ago after my first baby. I'd only had one then. And do you know what? I actually loved the job that I had. It was only a local shop, amazing team, like one of my most favorite jobs. But I'd started this creative hobby, turning it into a business, and I wanted to leave. I realized I want to be a business owner.
Mm.
And so I left. But it didn't happen for me. It just didn't happen. Um, like we ended up with my husband's ill health, and then we ended up on benefits, which is not a bad thing. If you need it, take it. Like whoever's listening, there's no judgment from me on this. The
Mm-hmm.
only time I don't like to judge, but we all do it, is when people don't find a way to improve things. Like it doesn't mean just in terms of that, but like I could have just took that and stayed with that, but I didn't, and
Yeah.
because I want more than what it can give me anyway. That's a whole other story. But it was at that point, and I was like, right, I need to make more money. Struggling financially, husband's not well, and I sat every day moaning. I used to be a right moaning mile. I was moaning because I wasn't getting the sales in, I wasn't getting the reactions that I expected when I could see these other creative businesses thriving, or what I thought was thriving, because you never know what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to do something. And so I joined a lot of free like courses, things like that, stuff that like I offer now, to be fair, lots of freebies, and learnt the value. And I learnt stuff that I just didn't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And it started there in terms of my business. But once I'd got a taste for learning, implementing, action taking, and seeing that result, it kind of started mainly from there. And then throughout my journey and in my life, it's then like evolved with other areas, and probably most in the in this past year, because in this past year I've started working on my health. I've working on leadership, working on even more on social media. So yeah, it's happening there in those areas of my life now too.
It's just brilliant being able to talk to Dani today. One of the fundamentals of Raise is good mental health, and we want to support your mental health in all kinds of different ways. So do go to www.raiseforall.com to see the different resources and materials that we have. And of course, please share the podcast with your friends and family, telling them that we're on all available platforms. Back to the episode. You talked just a minute ago, it seemed that you'd actually talked about some steps. I don't know if you can remember them, but you said you did a kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this happened. How important do you think it is to kind of do the fundamentals kind of one by one?
So I'm going to contradict myself with this response.
Excellent.
So I'm always a contradiction. Firstly, because when you need to put something in place for whatever your goal is, right? It's really important to give you focus to it. So, for example, because I'm not a health coach, but it's what I'm working on right now. So, and it's always been an analogy that I can relate to anyway. If you're new to it, like you never exercised before, you're not going to be able to just get up out of bed and run a marathon and be fit and healthy. So we have to do, or what I had to do was one thing at a time. First, I
Mm.
worked on the water, then I worked on the exercise and gradually increased it week by week because I wasn't used to doing 10K steps a day. I couldn't even imagine doing that. And now I can't imagine not because it feels great.
Yeah.
But it's like that step by step. So focus on one thing at a time. It's the same within your business. Focus on one thing at a time. However, um, they don't have to go in any particular order, I don't believe.
Okay.
I mean, when I'm teaching in my business, yes, some things need to come first. Like, for example, you might, it would be better if you do like your branding, for example, something as simple as that, or what seems simple for me now, but is for new starters, it's not going to be. But branding and doing that, working out your message, who you are, what you do, all of that stuff, um, needs to come first, essentially. However, if we spend months and months and months on that one thing just to get it perfect, we're not going to get out there so anyone's actually going to
Yeah.
know who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I do believe you can start elsewhere and work on it as you go. So like if anyone said to me like where do I start, Donny? I'd be like, just push, just get visible, just open yourself up to the opportunities. And we can work on that one focus thing along the way. Because I believe people go, or they dive in and go, oh, I'm running a business now. I need a website. I need an Etsy shop if they're a creative. I need a business account. I need this. I need this. And they start reeling off all these things, realize can't afford it all right now. Can't put all the time into that right now. And they're not excuses in that instance because they literally can't. So it's recognizing whether you can or whether you can't or how you can do it. And the how would be, instead I'm going to do it step by step. And it's the same with health. Like I remember doing it all at once and I fell after 3 days, like at the first hurdle, because I just couldn't prioritize with my busy life, working on my health in the way that I was trying to tackle all of it at once. So I ended up working with a holistic health coach and did it again. Same as I do for my clients. She did it with her expertise with me, step by step. And then over summer, although it wasn't perfect, it got me prepared working on different things, learning different things, what was going to be right for me. So that then, well, once we got to like September, kids went back to school and I got focused again. And I'm now 3 weeks in to being so consistent. And that's kind of how it happened in like my business as well. So the steps can be, yes, focus one thing at a time, step by step. They do merge, the lines do blur, and they don't have to be in a particular order most of the time.
Mm. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, we've talked about these non-negotiables and these deal breakers, but I've seen so often recently how many people have said, yeah, but I didn't start because, I was worried it was going to go wrong. And
Yeah,
people want that kind of perfection. And I think sometimes we think a deal breaker has to go hand in hand with perfection,
yeah,
but it doesn't. A deal breaker means it has to be done. It doesn't mean it has to be done perfectly. And as long as it's done uh, in an effective and productive way, which I know is what your book is teaching about,
yeah,
then that's good enough, because a brick is a brick for a foundation, as long as you've laid it and you've made sure that it's not going to kind of wobble, and you've made sure you put other bricks around it. People on the pod, I'm doing my actions. Dani can't even see it. I'm doing my actions. I'm showing all the bricks around, obviously, because it's very important. It doesn't really matter even what color the bricks are. Like if someone
yeah,
turned up with blue bricks, then if you lay them, you still got a foundation. They might not match the rest of the house, but you will have a foundation to build on. And as you said, you can do things then to change things around and move things around. And I
yeah,
do think we've become this society. I mean, I don't know about you, Dani, but it just I just find it really sad in a way on social media how many people now put up a lovely photo of themselves or themselves and a child and say, excuse the washing, or excuse
yeah.
my hair, excuse my makeup. Like, when did we need to apologize for being
So
us?
we are, yeah,
Like, shouldn't that be a fundamental that, I'm posting a picture of myself and my child, I'm not expecting anybody to comment on the washing. So I'm not even going to comment on it myself. If you comment on my washing, then you're not really interested in who I am at all. And I
Yeah.
think those kind of fundamentals get lost in all these other big, things that massive building blocks that people talk about, that, if you don't do this, then you're not going to succeed. I wonder how far we've gone wrong in getting those fundamentals right, really.
Yeah, it's funny you've said that actually, because I had feedback before I moved into my new house. We didn't have a lot of space. I had half a room as an office, but behind me, like, because we didn't have space, we had things piled on top of the wardrobe. My bed was behind me. Like, the house, we had five of us in a two-bedroom house. There was just no space, and it was quite cluttered.
Mm.
And I came live anyway with like my background, and someone put me a message one day on Instagram and said, "Oh, I love that you've just done that." And I'm like, "What have I done?" And it was just the simple fact of I showed up anyway, like not giving two flying monkeys what was behind me, because she said, "My house is exactly the same. I always feel embarrassed, shamed about that. Like I can't share it." And she's like, "Have to tidy it all away and stuff, but you've just gone on there now and done that." I mean, full disclosure, like now I don't have that because we have got more space, but that's not always possible. And so I just did it. I did what I needed to do, regardless of what was behind me. And yes, I know, like photographers and professionals will say, have a clear background. I've even said it, but
Yeah.
you work with what you've got and don't hide what's the reality for you. Because
And when
it's
we're going on full disclosure and transparency, Dani has got a beautiful background. She's got a lovely sparkly crown. She's got a beautifully clean whiteboard. My background is blurred out, which I don't even do. So holler me for being hypocritical. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The
yeah.
things that we do. I don't normally blur my background out, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's okay though. Like I think if it's gonna, it's that fine line between, do I want to change that, like with anything, this background, am I not happy with it? How's it making me feel? But then also, do I just want to hide it and that make me feel better?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And
it
you
is
don't want to
it's a,
distract people either, especially when
yeah.
we're having an interview like this. You don't want to be peering around going,
Well,
"What
saying
is that
that,
she's got on the wall?" For goodness sake.
I'm actually planning on doing that because I'm gonna put my book on the wall behind me, so every time I'm on Zoom, I can see it over my shoulder.
That's a good
So I will do
idea.
that on purpose at one point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think we have massively digressed, um, but my point is, I wonder how far in the wrong direction we've gone with some
Yeah.
fundamentals. And I mean, we're not at the end of the podcast yet, but we do always put a challenge out. And just right now, as we're talking, I do, I do just wonder what people's fundamentals are, and that are there a set of fundamentals that should all be the same, or are they going to be different for everybody? What have you found in the business world? Have you found that generally the fundamentals need to be the same?
Yes and no, because I believe that a business needs certain things in place. Um, and by the way, for anyone new in business listening, like it's you don't have to have a website, like it's not essential. But I think like things like branding, payment gateways, email marketing for anyone that's not so important for anyone that's not done it, because it just gives you more opportunity, gives you more growth. And I teach this in like one of my classes, like how far it can get you to like your end goals. So there is kind of things like that, but when it comes to each individual thing, we all do it in a different way. So
Mm,
we all have unique situations, lifestyles, abilities. So the way I do things are not necessarily always going to be ideal for you or for one of my clients. Like one big thing is like energy. People's energy is different. Like I am a better person on a morning, so I'm really productive. I get up at 5 o'clock and I do a little bit of exercise then where people think it's crazy and I'm like, yeah, it's not crazy, it's just me.
mm,
Whereas it doesn't suit one of them. But one point in time I it wouldn't suit me. Um but then, like for someone else, they might work. I've got a VA actually who works until like 1 in the morning or two, even later, because she just feels so inspired at that time. and then she will rest and she will start her day later, which is just alien to me because it's just so opposite. But I think it's embracing your energy. So there's that part of it as well within anything that you do in your business.
Yeah.
There is other factors as well, like what people are actually dealing with, whether it's health conditions, their children, or the kind of challenges. So I can always relate to health conditions and like children because obviously I am a mum, and I say part-time care because I don't always need to care for him, but my husband, like he does have a lot of days, like more recently, and especially when it comes to winter, where he'll be bedbound and things like that because of his health conditions. So um like that may have an impact. Like for example, he's not there, so I'll have to go do have the kids with me while I work or whatever that looks like, and adjust accordingly. So like I believe everybody has their own little challenges that are unique to us. Our situation is different. So when we put those foundations in place, we can't all build them the same way. So for example, I love creating content. I have up until recently, because I am reducing it now, but I have been putting out a lot of content on social media. And so I have clients come to me and say, Dani, how much content should I post? And there is mentors out there, or there's social media experts that will tell you a specific number. And I actually disagree with that because I believe the number that's right is the right one for you. Like, because what's right for me is going to be different for everybody else. I love creating content. It's easy. If you're not creative and you struggle with that, then you shouldn't be forced to do, like I've heard 3, I've heard 6 pieces of content a day. It's a lot. So just do one. Like that's one of my examples. Like it's got to suit you. So if you can find and make a time to do just one, doing one is better than none. Because otherwise, if we try and put that pressure on ourselves, and this is just content, but anything in business, we try and put that pressure on ourselves to do it the way Dani does it or the way that so and so down the road does it, it's unrealistic because it doesn't fit our schedule, our lifestyle, our ability. 'Cause some people struggle with content creation or anything else in business, like email marketing, for example, tech, all the different things. So we have to tackle it in a different way, and it might be less is more. It might be outsourcing it. It's got to be different but it's got to be right for you because it's never going to be the same for every single person, every single business, every single situation. There's so many factors. And I do this in what I do. So whereas the book does teach step by step, I do highlight and encourage in there to do it in your own way. And one of the biggest things is like time, because I remember being taught to time block, and I've never seen anyone else teach anything other than time blocking, time management. And then I come along and I got a different approach with it because I know that time blocking doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes it does for me.
Yeah.
And shiny object syndrome, I get bored.
Yeah.
And I change. So I adapt. And I believe that most creative people need to adapt regularly because we get bored. We like shiny things. We like new routines. So I talk about that, and it's something I encourage most people to do. Like try it, if it works, great. If it doesn't, then try something else because it's unique to you. Like we are individual, so different, as well as all of the other factors. So I talk through that, and it is really important to find your way. So yeah, the foundations we put in place never the same for everybody. However, there is going to be certain things that we do need to do. Like for example, let's go back to health again. Exercise, right? Yes, it's a fundamental for everyone. But again, going back to health conditions, the exercise that we can do cannot be the same for everyone because of those conditions. Like for example, what I can do versus what my husband can do, completely different because his energy will just literally have him on the floor, and as well as the pain that comes I mean, exercise does come with pain. I'm feeling that myself today after the gym.
Yeah. But you know the difference between
Yeah.
gentle reminders, as my gym coach used to say, and
achy
pain that you can't manage.
Normal achy muscles is fine.
Yeah.
But when you can't physically walk, that's not fine.
Yeah.
Or something similar. Because it's not always what you can and can't do, it's choosing what you can't do because of your energy as well. I think it's really, really important. And it seems almost ironic when I talk about this because sometimes I'm like, get off your backside and move. But then sometimes I'm like, no, you need to rest. And I am that person because it's recognizing what's right for you in that moment in time. So always with fundamental things, we've got to come at it with both aspects of it. Like, am I doing enough right now? Could I do more? Or actually, do I need to take a step back? That we've got to approach it with that aspect as well. Yeah.
Okay. It's been fascinating, really interesting to talk about some of the different fundamentals and how they work and look. And so we are coming to the part of the podcast where we, just ask the listeners. So just where you are now, just have a think about what your fundamentals are. What are your deal breakers? Maybe just 2 or 3 things that are non-negotiables in your life. And are they still the right fundamentals for you? Are they maybe something that you had over time, maybe even through some kind of traumatic response or difficulties in relationships, that maybe those fundamentals can change now? Or are they things that you need to work more on? Is there a creative way that you can look at some fundamentals that you know are important but have become boring or pressurized? And who might you be able to reach out to help you? So if you're in business, will you reach out to Dani, have a look at her book? If you are not in business, but you're working through things, is there a friend that you can reach out to and just say, look, these are things that are important to me, but X, Y, and Z is happening and it needs to change, or I need to be better at things, because they're important. Having a good foundation is important for building the rest of your life, whether it's business or life or whatever. Anything to add to that, Dani?
No, that's spot on, is that? That's some really good questions.
Okie dokie. Right. So now we come to the part of the podcast where I write a poem, and Dani's having a giggle to herself because, as I said, I wrote Dani's jingle, and one of the words that she wanted me to rhyme with was organizational, wasn't it? And did I do it, Dani?
You did it, yeah. It sounds amazing. Honestly, love that jingle.
I love a challenge. But now I've got the word fundamental. So, as a creative, the fundamentals of poetry for me, not for everybody, so don't start emailing in and shouting at me, but the fundamentals are rhyme. So I have discovered the word lentil, dental. So I've been through thinking about it. So let's see what actually comes out. Just give me a minute. Fundamentals are the building blocks, the boulders or rocks or stones that you lay in order to feel secure. And if you're not sure if the ones that you've laid are correct, take a step back. Do you need to be more direct in your approach? Do you need to try a little more? Do you need to try a little less? Maybe confess that your fundamentals are not quite right and try once more, because you are important and you are filled with the things and desires that make you build the person that you are and you can be. There you go.
I thought you planned that and you haven't. You've just come out with it. That's amazing.
But you can tell, can't you, that I haven't planned it because that wasn't great.
But well, for the starters, like, obviously you can't see this, but I can see you, and you're not looking at a piece of paper, you're not looking down.
No. I don't look at it. I can't look at anybody when I do it. I look into the sky. But
yeah,
some thoughts for people to think about. Dani, is there anything else that you want to say before we finish? Just make sure we know all about your book, any websites. We'll put things on the show notes as well. But do just tell us anything else that we need to know before we go.
It's out November 2024. You can get it on Kindle, paperback, hardback. It's called Business Fundamentals. Give it a search on Amazon, you'll find it easy enough. And I am at the Queen of Business Organisation everywhere. If anyone does need help with organisation, streamlining processes, and growing their business, essentially. and having a greater impact on your life as well at the same time.
Brilliant. And you're also on YouTube. So if you want to go and listen to What I Rhymed with Organizational, go and have a listen to Dani's YouTube. And Dani, thank you so much for your time today. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.